Valerie Fontaine sat vigil by her husband Walter's hospital bed, her perfectly made-up face a mask hiding the anguish within. Just a month after their third wedding anniversary, her beloved Walter was wasting away from a mysterious illness that had him looking decades older than his 33 years. "Oh, Wally," she whispered, gently brushing back his thinning brown hair. "My one true love, the doctors here still can't figure out what's making you sicken like this. But I swear on everything holy, I won't stop until I find a cure and make you well again." Her mind drifted back to the day they met, 5 years earlier. She had been a high-powered workaholic CEO brought in as a patient, slowly killing herself through constant stress and neglect of her health. The young, brilliant Dr. Walter Miller had taken one look at her frazzled state and lit into her like a schoolgirl. "Miss Fontaine, do you have any idea how much damage you're doing to your body?" he had scolded her. "If you don't make serious lifestyle changes immediately, you'll be dead before you're 50. At first, Valerie had been offended by the arrogant, handsome young doctor's stern lecture. But his harsh words and obvious concern for her well-being had quickly melted the icy walls around her heart. Within months, their doctor-patient relationship blossomed into a scandalous May-December romance, despite the 10-year age gap with Valerie as the older woman. Her friends had warned her Walter was a conniving gold digger. Just after her vast personal fortune, he'd already been fired from 2 other clinics for reasons no one could discern. But Valerie had been blinded by love and married him anyway when she was 40 and he was just 30. She had cut off anyone who dared suggest her beloved Walter was a fraud. And now he was failing before her eyes in what should have been his prime, the life slowly draining out of him day by day. Every doctor in the prestigious Shady Palms hospital where Walter worked had examined him, but came up empty on a diagnosis or cure. A profound guilt overcame Valerie as she wondered if her own insecure jealousies and constant suspicions that Walter was being unfaithful had ultimately made him fall ill. "Please hang on, my darling," Valerie sobbed, clasping his bony hand. "I'll do whatever it takes to make your final wish come true, to be buried in that beautiful private cemetery we stumbled upon when my limo broke down. You always said it was the most blissfully serene place you'd ever been. I'll move heaven and earth to make it happen, my love. Just please, don't leave me." The next morning found Valerie wandering the pristine, lushly landscaped grounds of the exclusive Whispering Pines Memorial Gardens Cemetery. Only the wealthiest and most elite members of society were allowed to be interred here after passing an intense vetting process. She marveled at the ornate mausoleums, statues, and water features as she tried to map out the perfect final resting place for her Walter. As she turned a corner, she came across a young homeless girl who looked no older than 11 or 12. The dirty, stringy-haired waif was curled up against a mausoleum, shivering in ragged clothes despite the Florida heat. "Hey, you can't sleep here!" Valerie barked in a tone much harsher than she intended. "The groundskeepers will chase you off if they see you trespassing." The girl looked up at her with sad, hollow eyes. "The grounds crew don't come in till the morning, lady. I know 'cause I've been sleeping here on and off for a couple months now." Valerie felt a pang of pity. This child's life must be unimaginably difficult if she had to seek refuge amongst the dead. "I'm Christine," the girl said, sticking out a tiny, grubby hand. "Valerie," she replied, shaking it gently. "You must be terribly hungry. I have some snacks in my car if you'd like some." Hope flickered in Christine's sunken eyes as she quickly nodded and followed Valerie to her sleek black Jaguar sedan. Pulling a bag of chips, granola bars, and an orange juice from the front seat, Valerie couldn't help but notice how the girl ravenously scarfed down every morsel in seconds. When was the last time this poor creature had eaten? "My folks, they make me come panhandle out here near the cemetery to get 'em drinking money," Christine said between mouthfuls, seeing the sad look in Valerie's eyes. "So they're addicts and neglecting you," Valerie stated more than asked, her heart breaking for this child. "That's no life for a young girl. You deserve so much better." Christine just shrugged, the very picture of hopelessness in one so young, and asked, "Why did you come here? Do you have someone here?" "No, not yet." "Not yet?" "Yes, my husband. He's in the hospital now. Apparently he's only got a little bit left." Valerie sobbed. He really wants to be buried here. I see. Is he a tough guy? No, he's just a doctor. He's a doctor and he can't cure himself? As you can see, it happens. What's he sick with? I don't know, neither does he. He's just fading away. Christine looked around shiftily before leaning in close to Valerie, lowering her voice to a whisper. My Gram always said when someone gets a weird wasting illness like that with no cure, it means a house spirit has attached itself to him, trying to smother him out. Valerie felt a bewildered laugh rise in her throat. A house spirit? This dirty waif believed in some sort of supernatural folktale? The only way to stop it, Graham said, is to get the spirit on camera as a ghostly mist or something. Then take the footage to a church to perform a ritual and banish it away from whoever it's latched onto. If you want to save your man, you better try it and see if anything shows up. Valerie opened her mouth to laugh off the ridiculous superstition. But then she closed it, really considering Christine's words. Walter was dying before her eyes with no medical explanation. Maybe, just maybe it was worth a shot, no matter how ludicrous this spirit idea sounded. Christine, you may be onto something, she finally said. In fact, I'm going to see about having a camera installed in Walter's room first thing tomorrow. If it catches anything abnormal on film, I'll know what to do next. Christine beamed at her in a surprisingly cynical way, looking 20 years older than her actual age. That's the smart play, lady. You do whatever it takes to beat this thing, you hear? I'll be pulling for you. Something told Valerie this tough-as-nails street urchin had just imparted legitimately wise advice, despite her ragged appearance and hardened manner. Thanks for the tip, Christine, Valerie said warmly before climbing into her car. I'll let you know if anything develops. Oh, and be sure to take shelter somewhere safe tonight. It's supposed to rain. As she drove off, Valerie couldn't shake the lost little girl's haunting words about vengeful spirits from her mind. She planned to have the camera installed first thing in the morning, just in case some kernel of truth lay behind that zany old wives' tale. The very next day, Valerie had convinced the hospital administration to allow a hidden camera to be installed in the corner of Walter's private room. Some couples wanted to capture the miracle of childbirth on film, she had reasoned. So why couldn't she do the same for her dying husband's potential final moments? Against their best judgment, the admin staff had relented and set up the pinhole camera. That night, Valerie sat alone in the vacant security room, staring at a blank screen as it awaited being activated by motion in Walter's room. She had been racked with guilt all day for stooping to such underhanded measures. Maybe because deep down, some part of her feared her handsome young husband had been unfaithful, and she needed to know for sure. Finally, right around 11 p.m., the screen flickered to life as it detected motion in Walter's room. Valerie's jaw dropped at the sight before her. There was Walter, looking perfectly healthy and energetic as he paced around the room speaking fervently into a cell phone. And then a beautiful young woman in a slinky red dress slipped in from the adjoining bathroom, flashing Walter a seductive smile before draping herself provocatively across his bed. "Who the hell is that?" Valerie hissed under her breath, feeling a pit of rage and betrayal burning in her stomach. The mystery woman laid back, hiking her dress up to reveal toned, tan thighs as Walter hungrily drank in the sight, his call seemingly forgotten. He clicked off the phone and pounced onto the bed, hungrily devouring the bimbo's lips with his own in a feverish kiss. "Oh, Wally, you silver-tongued devil," the woman purred in a breathy voice when they finally came up for air. "Tomorrow's the big day when your dried-up old battle axe of a wife signs everything over to you. Then we can finally blow this trap and split for our beachside paradise." Valerie felt her blood run cold at the strange woman's venomous words. Her worst fears were confirmed. Walter had been faking this entire illness in some sort of twisted scheme to inherit her fortune. "That's right, baby," Walter growled, trailing kisses down the woman's neck as his hands roamed greedily over her body. Old Valerie's fortune and her precious tech company, both mine for the taking. Once that dried-up prune signs her assets over, thinking it's her dearly departed husband's dying wish to get buried in that snobby cemetery, we're home free. "So it's all been an act?" the woman asked between breathy gasps of pleasure, as Walter's hands continued wandering. "This whole deathbed routine? You better believe it, Marion, my love. Walter grinned wickedly. The idiot actually bought that I was withering away. Hook, line, and sinker. As soon as I get those signatures, your new boy toy husband is going to fake his own death. Then we'll skedaddle to our private beach villa and live like the king and queen we are on her dime. Valerie had seen and heard more than enough. She reached up with a trembling hand to tear the clip-on microphone from her blouse, cutting off the audio before she had to listen to any more of her husband's sordid betrayal plans. Hot tears of rage streamed down her face as she watched the love of her life ravage his latest fling, oblivious to the camera capturing his every move. She stormed out of the security room, knocking over a metal chair and startling the poor guard on duty. Her heart had been utterly shattered into pieces by the depth of Walter's deception. But an icy pall of determination was already setting in. If it was all-out war her bastard husband wanted to wage over her hard-earned empire, then she would show him no mercy. When Valerie returned to the hospital room the next morning, she had the family's corporate attorney in tow. They found Walter back in his bed, pale and withered as he had been, playing up his death's door routine for all it was worth. "Ah, my darling angel," Walter said in a weak, rasping voice as Valerie pulled up a chair next to the bed. "And I see you've brought Mr. Shapiro from legal to get the paperwork ready. How utterly thoughtful of you both." "Indeed," Valerie replied coldly, her expression an icy mask of stoicism. She set a manila envelope down on Walter's bedside tray, sliding it across to him. "What a relief it will be to have everything settled before... Walter choked up, feigning emotion as he trailed off. "If only I could see my final wish of being laid to rest in that beautiful private cemetery fulfilled." "Don't worry, I'll make sure you get your final wish," Valerie said coolly. "Go ahead and open the envelope, dear husband." Walter greedily tore open the clasp, his bony hands trembling with unbridled avarice. He eagerly fished out the sheaf of papers inside and scanned the top page, only for his face to fall in stunned disbelief. These are divorce papers," he sputtered, the pallor of his face now becoming very real and pallid with shock. "You're leaving me? Kicking me out with nothing while I'm on my deathbed? Did you really think I wouldn't see through your pathetic little act?" Valerie sneered, leaning back in her chair as she crossed her legs haughtily. "I've got the whole sordid thing recorded for posterity. You, your little whore Marion, the whole beach getaway plan once I signed everything over to you." "Valerie, I can explain everything," Walter blubbered, panic flashing in his eyes. But Valerie was already reaching into her purse and pulling out her cell phone. With a few taps of perfectly manicured nails, Walter's cruel, gloating voice filled the room. "Once that dried-up prune signs her assets over, thinking it's her dearly departed husband's dying wish to get buried in that snobby cemetery, we're home free. As soon as I get those signatures, your new boy toy husband is going to fake his own death. Then we'll skedaddle to our private beach villa and live like the king and queen we are on her dime." The blood drained from Walter's face entirely as his own damning words poured from the speaker. He opened and closed his mouth uselessly like a gasping fish, desperately trying to concoct an excuse or denial. But Valerie simply stared at him in cold contempt until the recording finished. "Sign the papers and get out of my life for good, you miserable con man," she said evenly, sliding the pen from the envelope towards him. "Don't even think of trying to fight me on this, or I'll release that tape to the cops and make sure you get nailed with criminal fraud charges." Walter's shoulders slumped in total defeat. Saying nothing, he took the pen with a trembling hand and scribbled a shaky signature across the thick divorce papers. Valerie didn't even feel the slightest flicker of emotion as she watched her marriage get dissolved in the literal blink of an eye. She just silently stood, gathering the freshly signed papers before turning to the lawyer. "Make sure these get filed immediately, Mr. Shapiro," she said, her voice dripping with cold venom as she stared daggers at her soon-to-be ex-husband one last time. "As for you, I hope you and your little girlfriend have a lovely life together on the streets where you belong. Don't ever try coming near me or my company again, or I'll have you thrown in prison so fast it'll make your head spin." With that, she spun on her designer heel and marched from the room without a backwards glance. Her heart panged briefly with the loss of the life she thought she had, But the pang was quickly replaced by an overwhelming sense of freedom. The lying, cheating albatross around her neck was finally falling away. As Valerie's limo pulled up to Whispering Pines Memorial Gardens a few hours later, she felt an odd sense of tranquility and new beginnings wash over her, as if being here was ushering out the dark, troubled chapter of her marriage and beckoning a fresh start. She stepped out into the still afternoon heat, surveying the immaculately groomed landscape around her. Taking a deep, cleansing breath, she began winding her way along the labyrinthine paths as if drawn by an unseen force. Sure enough, she soon spotted the ragged form of Christine huddled against a marble crypt up ahead, looking utterly defeated and exhausted. As she drew closer, the heartbreaking sounds of the little girl's terrified whimpering reached her ears. Valerie quickened her pace into a jog, panic seizing her chest. "Christine! Christine!" she cried as she turned the corner, only to be met by a horrific sight. The young homeless girl was curled up in a trembling ball, her frail arms shielding her head as she took blow after blow from a grimy, barrel-chested man with a ruddy, drunken face. The reek of stale booze and cigarettes assaulted Valerie's nostrils as she raced up to the foul vagrant. "Hey, get your filthy hands off of her right now!" she screamed, shoving the bum away from the whimpering child with all her might. The drunken man reeled backwards, squinting blearily at Valerie through bloodshot eyes. "Who the fuck are you, lady?" he slurred, steadying himself against a headstone. "This here's my no-good kid, and I'll beat some sense into her if I goddamn well please." "You miserable wretch!" Valerie spat, positioning herself protectively in front of the cowering Christine. "How dare you raise a hand against a child, you pathetic, cowardly animal! Get out of here right now before I call the police!" The bum narrowed his booze-addled eyes menacingly, seemingly contemplating taking a swing at this well-dressed fancy woman. But Valerie held her ground, back straight, and chin jutted out defiantly. After a tense moment, the drunk seemed to think better of it and turned to stumble away, muttering a string of curses under his foul breath. As soon as he was gone, Valerie whirled to kneel beside Christine's shuddering form. "Oh, sweetheart, oh my God," she whispered, tears springing to her eyes at the pathetic state of the girl. Trembling from head to toe, Christine had a blossoming black eye and split lip where her father's blows had landed. Streaks of grime and dried tear tracks coated her hollow cheeks. Gingerly, Valerie reached out and took Christine into her arms, cradling the frail child to her chest. At first, the girl flinched and tried to pull away, her eyes wide with fright. But then something in Valerie's soft, soothing motions and words seemed to reach her. "Shh, shh, you poor thing," Valerie cooed, rocking Christine gently as she stroked her matted hair. "It's okay now. You're safe. That monster will never lay a hand on you again. I promise." Christine said nothing, but her frightened trembling slowly subsided as she melted into the comforting embrace. Tear after tear rolled down Valerie's cheeks, her heart utterly shattered by the realization that this sweet child had been suffering unspeakable horrors right under her nose. She thought of her own cold, privileged childhood, loveless, but at least free from abuse, and a new sense of purpose blossomed within her. "Come now, darling," she whispered once Christine had calmed. "You're coming home with me, and we'll get you all cleaned up. Then, if you'll have me, I'd be honored if you'd allow me to give you the loving home and family you've never had." Christine lifted her bruised, puffy face to search Valerie's eyes, as if struggling to comprehend the magnitude of what she was offering. A childhood free from drunken rages and panhandling in cemeteries just to survive. A real mother's love and chance at a real future. After what seemed like an eternity, the girl gave the tiniest tentative nod, and in that moment, it was as if a great spiritual burden had been lifted from Valerie's shoulders. Her marriage had dissolved into ashes that day, but from those ashes, the first warm lights of a brand new life's purpose had been born. Christine would go from homeless, abused urchin to Valerie's daughter in every sense of the word. She would raise this child right, providing every opportunity and all the unconditional love she herself had so craved growing up. And maybe, just maybe, that would help heal the last lingering wounds of Valerie's own heart. Gathering Christine into her arms like a precious gemstone, Valerie stood and carried the girl out through the meticulously groomed grounds of the Whispering Pines Cemetery. With each step, she felt lighter and more energized by the future stretching out before them both. Turning to cast one last glance over her shoulder, Valerie felt a sense of finality, seeing the ornate headstones and mausoleums slowly receding behind her. Her old life, with all its betrayals and crushed dreams, would soon be laid to rest here. But more importantly, it was the sacred ground where she had found her new reason to keep living, little Christine, her soon-to-be adopted daughter. A whole world of possibilities lay ahead for them both, and this time Valerie vowed to get her new family absolutely right.